All right, Steve Johnson, you are on Driven to Ride. Thank you so much for being here.
Fantastic to be here. I'm excited to tell the world about motorcycle drag racing.
Yeah, well, why don't we just jump right in? What would maybe people most know you for? What is your kind of claim to fame? Or maybe in your case, multiple claims to fame?
Well, I don't know if they're claim to fame. I do a lot of school presentations about careers, and I have a Batman scholarship that I'd love to talk about at some point. But I guess I'm probably the only motorcycle drag racer, or maybe, well, I don't know how many racers, but we were first to 500 races. So if you go to all the races in the year that the sanction body puts on, and you do it for 38 years, you'll have 500 too. So
Wow, that's impressive, man. Very impressive.
it's drag racing for me started in Los Angeles, and it was street racing. It was really about street racing. We didn't have a drag strip, so you get a motorcycle. Cars were expensive, I got a Kawasaki 9. Well, I got a Honda 750 first, and that was fast. And it's like there's nothing that you could do. There's no car, there's no Camaro, there's no Mustang that's going to keep up with a Honda 750. And then and Kawasaki, gosh darn, Kawasaki 900 when it hit the streets. Are you kidding me?
So it sounds like you've always kind of had a need for speed in your life.
Well, I love downhill snow skiing, and I loved water skiing, so that was fun. But it was, I guess, discovering street racing and not getting killed. And luckily I figured out there was a drag strip, and then not having any money to keep building parts after you break them, then you discover you either better get a better job or you better figure out this thing about sponsorship. So we were fortunate for a little while to figure some of that out.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back all the way to the beginning. You talked about, 750s and Kawasaki 900 back in the day. How did you even get into motorcycling to begin with?
Well, my dad, that's a great question. My dad raced a little bit, road racing, and they called it TT. So he took us dirt bike riding. So, back when Moses came down and handed out the 10 Commandments, my dad was there with some motorcycles. So it's like we went dirt bike. El Mirage. I don't know if anybody's from California or have ever heard of that, but El Mirage Dry Lake. We went out there. We went to Muntz's Motorcycle Park, Indian Dunes. Oh my God, that's the best place on the planet. If you're a motorcycle person and you've never seen On Any Sunday, it's for sure the best movie on the planet. So
agreed.
My dad got us interested in dirt bikes, and from there it was a closed chapter.
So it sounds like you were kind of hooked on motorcycles just kind of right from the start. Yeah,
I love dirt bikes. I tell everybody, if I had to ride one motorcycle for the rest of my life, it'd be a dirt bike. And I raced them. I motocross and stuff, but I just sucked. I was just not good, So just when I thought I had a double, somebody was flying over the top of me with the triple. So it's like, wow, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, everybody's got their different skills, it seems like, or different tastes for riding and racing. So how did you go from dirt then over to street and ultimately street racing?
Well, I moved out of my mom's before high school ended, and hung out with my buddy Jim Laronis, and I worked for his. I started working for his dad, Sam Laronis. We called him Pops, and he's been a mentor my entire life. I'll go into this preaching a little bit because that's what I think God wants me to do. But it's like, if you can find a mentor, if you're a young person and you can find a mentor, man, grab onto them and hang on, because there's nobody wants to pay all the prices to learn the wrong way. And I got to learn the right way through a lot of things: girls, money, careers, all kinds of things. So I moved out and moved in with Jim Laronis, and then we were 17, and so you got to have a car, but cars weren't fast. So that's Jim and Jeff, his brother, and Sam introduced me to street bikes, and
Mm-hmm.
that was the first Honda 750 I had, man. It was a lot of fun.
So then obviously if you're racing dirt bikes and you get a street bike, you probably lends itself to say, okay, well, let's see how much faster I can go than everybody else, right?
Yeah. It was the Honda 750. It was stock. It had an 836 kit in it. So I don't even remember what it runs. I've got pictures of it, but it's yeah, I think back in those days, I think it probably ran low 12s or something like that, maybe even 11s. I can't remember, but I remember getting a Honda 750 with a Kenny Harmon D grind in it, and the drag. Wow, what a huge difference, cams! And I'd love to be able to talk about engines and cams that we're doing in Pro Stock, but I will tell you that it's absolutely fascinating. But then the Kawasaki came in and is like. Just dual overhead cam's gonna crush a Honda 750 in no time. So Kawasaki, and then it went to Suzuki 1100. But in between that, actually the Suzuki came a lot later. But I discovered a turbocharger.
Wow!
I had a turbocharger on my motorcycle in '85, and
wow.
We knew it was something like a hairdryer where it was putting air somewhere or something. But I'm telling you, it's still some of the most exciting things in my life to boost a motorcycle with 20 pounds of boost with Super Blue, like VP16, and it went 860, 160 with no wheelie bar at the drag strip. So, and in 1985, and so
wow.
That thing made some money on the streets. It was, people had no idea how fast it was going in second and third gear.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about on the streets, you're talking kind of about, how do I put this? Unsanctioned, kind of on the public road racing, as it were.
It was straight up badass street racing, man. It was awesome. I can't talk. I tell the kids about it when I do my school programs and stuff, but I want to be authentic, and I'm not this goody two shoe guys. I didn't get in drugs and drinking and robbing banks and all that kind of gun stuff, but it's like I street raced, and it was so exhilarating. I got robbed. I think when I was 15, and I got taken to the street races by my older friends. I'd sneak out of the window, and Van Nuys Boulevard, y'all. If you ever have a chance to look up a YouTube video, you go to Van Nuys Boulevard in Southern California, and that was the mecca. You'd cruise back and forth up and down that street, and then you'd park on the side, and you'd holler at girls, and you'd see people with their cars and stuff like that, and all that stuff would end, 10, 11 o'clock. But on Saturday night, that was Wednesday and Saturdays. On Saturday night, behind the Bank of America, the cars, all the race cars would come in. Everybody from Los Angeles, and all of us in the Valley, we thought we had fast cars, and we didn't. Those guys in LA there was a guy, Mark, that had a roller cam in the early 90s or in the late 80s, had a roller cam, and his Nova was a rocket ship. So anyway, street racing was a big deal to me. And it just, all week long, you'd work on your motorcycle, and then you'd go to the street races, and there are girls love fast stuff.
Sure.
So it's like,
and this was all street drag racing, right? So you kind of always been in the drag racing scene then?
Yeah. We still love dirt bikes, and I still have dirt bikes. Suzuki's helped me out, with some dirt bikes and stuff over the years, but drag racing, NHRA, National Hot Rod Association, and the Mission Series, the professional series. There's Top Fuel and Funny Car. They go 330 miles an hour in 1,000 feet. And then Pro Stock and Pro Stock Motorcycle. Those are like the factory hot rods. So they have in our class, we have Suzuki's and V Twins. So they 160 cubic inch for the V Twin, and 113 cubic inch for the inline four. So that, I've made a career out of that, and built a facility, moved out of Los Angeles and built a facility in Birmingham, Alabama, chasing a girl, and all the races seem to be on the the East Coast. So I ended up in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama.
Sure. Well, I have to imagine it's warmer than Chicago on average. So you've got that going for you.
We definitely go to Chicago to race. It's a lot of fun up there. It's an expensive town, Alabama, for a motorcycle guy trying to make a career out of it. It was a great choice. I really love this town. I'm entrenched in the community. The police are my friends. It's I'm a little bit of a suck up on sanction kind of things. The police department, the city, the NHRA, my own little sanction with our scholarships. I definitely like to promote that kind of stuff. So but Alabama, end of the day, it's very, very inexpensive to live. I still eat turkey and steak. I don't eat possum. So, whatever. And we have running water and everything. So it's not as backwoods as you think.
Well, that's good news. So how did you make the flip from going, street racing and all that to kind of NHRA sanctioned races? How do you kind of make that jump?
Well, in 1987, dating myself, we loved street racing and it was so much fun. But I wanted to be, you always look to better yourself. At least I think most of us do. And the real deal was racing in the National Hot Rod Association, Vance and Hines and Star Racing, Superbike Mike and Pizza John, all these fancy names and stuff like that. You'd read about it. Then we'd get a newspaper, the IDBA, International Drag Bike Association, and Pro Star, all these sanction bodies. On the West Coast, we didn't have that. We had LACR and Orange County, and then Orange County closed. So it was really a bummer. But I was fortunate, and I had a buddy, Lauren, help me buy an engine, and then he got me a bike. I put that engine in the bike. It had a little motorcycle tire. It was a Pro Stock engine. And so we went out and tried to race and did whatever we did and had fun. And the needle was in my arm and I just got more and more excited about it. And then we got a chance to go to an NHRA top level Pro Stock, televised, get paid, have a sponsor. And there's and there were funnel cakes. There were lots of funnel cakes in the races. So between the girls and the funnel cakes, man, I was hooked, man. It was like,
what else do you need, right?
Yeah. So we got a special car tire, a 15-inch car tire we put on the back of our motorcycle, and that was the deal in Pro Stock. Get lots of power, so you had to hook it up. Big tire, big 15 versus a motorcycle tire has short sidewalls. This is a big car tire, so it had lots of gush, so it made a bigger footprint, so you could put more power to it. And Lester White in Los Angeles, he built me took a stock Kawasaki chassis and turned it into this bike, and it had a fiberglass gas tank. It was pretty rough, but we put it in a crate, a wooden crate, and shipped it to New Jersey. To my knowledge,
literally
nobody's ever done that.
Yeah.
And we a lot of these situations that I think are fun. People look like scratch your head, but you do what you do. You do what you want to do to get to your so-called dream. So I guess we went with the crate because the guy that was going to take us, he flaked, and he couldn't go. So then we built this crate. I had a buddy, Craig Burns, told me we'll get it shipped for you. Put it in a crate. They brought it to the racetrack. They unloaded it, and we went underneath. There was a flatbed trailer there. We parked under. We put the crate underneath the flatbed trailer. Envision this, y'all. If you're just listening. It gets dropped off with this forklift. We're in this dirt because the bikes are still second-class citizen. We got kind of parked out in the weeds a little bit. So Terry Vance is there, and Pizza John, and George Bryce, all these big teams with their motorhome days, right? So
Right.
they drop this crate off, and I unload it, and we pull out the extension cord and some tools, and there's my motorcycle there. So I'm making a big deal out of it, but it was very, very special. We made a shirt. The bike's exploding out of a crate, and sold lots of shirts. So it was fun, and we qualified, won our first round. Could have won the second round. I made a dumb mistake, but that was being on TV. That was 100,000 people at this race in New Jersey. It's like you go into the restaurants after the event, after each day of qualifying, and there's the superstars, Connie Coletta and Don Perdome and Kenny Bernstein and John Force. It's like I was right there. It was very, very special.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a hell of a start to a racing career. You really jumped in with both feet and kind of just started at grassroots, really.
Yeah, it definitely, from dirt bikes to street bikes, from street bikes to, I had a pizza job. I worked at Shakey's in Los Angeles, in Southern California. So, that little clunker of a street bike, then the light turns green and you hot rod it. And then next thing you know, you're hanging out and you get a 750. And then like I said, the Kawasaki and then a turbocharged. And then it's like, we really, they hated turbochargers at the races because they didn't make any noise. So,
okay. Yeah, sure.
I fought that forever and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is I discovered NHRA Pro Stock. That was my dream. I was a Jaguar technician. So I learned about, engines from Sam and Jim and Jeff Laronis and my buddy Harry Gunnison. Harry Gunnison was probably instrumental. I'm a little bit late talking about him, but he was instrumental in getting me to the race and helping me. He eventually bought a fancy dually and a trailer and took me to the races. And wow, he gave me a ton. So Harry Gunnison really helped a lot. So, and that's kind of the infrastructure of my deal before sponsorship. It's like you lean on your friends and your friends become passionate and there's so many great things in life to do besides getting in trouble and being, a jackwagon. It's like we had so much fun doing this. It was in our blood. It was in every thought that we had. And this is y'all wait, no internet, no cell phones. Okay. It's like, I sent 2,100 Christmas cards to the media. I was trying to be a Kenny Bernstein. And I would put stamps on them and I would take a picture. I would go with the camera to the grocery store, get it all developed. You're looking at them and then you take the negatives and you say 15 of number 6 and 28 of number. And, this is how I did social media back then. I would get hundreds of pictures that we got. I don't know what they were, 3 cents each or something. I'd get hundreds, literally hundreds of pictures. And after every race, I would send these pictures out to the media with a note on a press release. It was an incredible amount of time. Jay Eschbach and Diane at APE, they helped me with a newsletter. And so these are the things that we did. Not that I expect you to be interested in that, but I'm just telling you, that's the level of passion that we had to create a brand for ourselves. And that's what I talk about in my presentations, marketing your brand after the diploma. That's what we get young people to understand, that when they have a career that they want, go figure out what brand you need to be entrenched in that, where you're valuable and you can make, and the boss will love you and keep giving you raises and stuff. So that's the kind of social media that we did without social media in the old days. Print a bunch of pictures, put them with a press release, and snail mail it to everybody.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody can accuse you of not putting in the work, man. That's impressive.
There's a Cycle World really helped out a lot. When I would get a chance to be with be in a magazine, when we won our first race and was in USA Today. Oh my gosh. Wow. I stayed up all night because they would deliver the newspaper in Gainesville, Florida at 2 a.m. I went to all the mailboxes and took all of them that I could get because I wanted to use the USA Today paper and the clip and send it to everybody instead of the typical pictures,
Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah. Well, you've had some highlights, obviously over, 500 plus races. Tell me about a couple of your favorite highlights of your racing career.
Well, probably.
I mean, obviously, USA Today has to be one of them.
Yeah. There's I got to go to Japan with Dave Schultz. That's probably something that's very special. Don't worry, y'all. I'm not going to get into this crying thing. Everything that I have is absolutely so much fun that I would never. I don't think I'd ever fall off onto that area. But there's a couple things that come to my mind now. I went to qualified for these races. Got to hang out with all of my favorite people and heroes back in those days. I mean, Don Garlitz was there. It's like, are you kidding me? Steve Evans, the most famous announcer, and Mac and Bob Fry, all these fancy people and stuff. But it's, I guess, one of the coolest things was, besides going to Japan and getting paid and going back and then winning, that's really special. I remember calling my sponsor at Slick 50 in 91. And I told, in Japan, by the time we finished the race and got back to the hotel, it's late and I'm excited. So I call the president of Slick 50. It's an engine treatment. And I said, I won. And he says, stay there. Stay there. So it was fun, but he bought me a suit, and I came back to Los Angeles or Houston, Texas, bought me a suit, and I wanted to always be professional. And I got to go to NASCAR. I never knew what the number 3 was, but I was on a float back when NASCAR had to promote, and they did a parade through Charlotte's city on Main Street.
Wow.
People were asking me to wear a hat for another sponsor because their driver didn't show up, and I was on the Racing for Kids float. But being in a photo shoot with Cindy, who's now married to Bill Elliott, those are very, very special things. Doing autograph sessions with Dale Earnhardt Sr. Oh my gosh, wow. It's like our sport Snap-on is given me so much stuff, but to know Dale, my gal back in those days, she's pretty hot, and so he'd be hitting on her, and I'd have to keep a close. I shouldn't say that, but he would do it in fun. He would do it in fun.
Sure.
And
sure.
I sat on the motorcycle in the Bahamas. Yeah. They flew my motorcycle into the Bahamas, and Dale was there, Richard Childress, Doug Herbert, Mike Skinner. And I'm sitting on the bike. It says Snap-on on it. And I'm just loving it. And my gal was covering up the Snap-on. So I told her to get in the back. Well, the pictures show up and Dale's mauling her, pretending, blah, 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 like he's kissing her and stuff like that. But, going to Richard's house and having steaks, it's those kinds of things. Dave Schultz had a memorial bike after he passed away. I got to ride his memorial bike at the NHRA race in Southern California, in Pomona. That was so special. They did a memorial tour because he was so popular and he had done so much. And I got to ride his bike. No Time came up and got to do a burnout, and it was just very, very special. Winning the Daytona 500 of drag racing is probably, if they say if you can't win a championship, you have to win Indy, and your career will be good. I like benchmarks and stuff, but we've been fortunate. Sure. We have probably the most controversial win ever in all of NHRA. I was racing Matt Smith, went across the finish line, and the beam somehow went through my wheel and got Matt's wheel, and they gave him the win. And when they asked to rewind, that Mike Dunn was in the booth, and he says, "Wait, rewind that.
Sure.
Let's watch that in slow motion." And in slow motion,
replay.
you could see that I was clearly ahead. So they, blah blah, big long story. But anyway, 2 days later, they reviewed it and figured out what happened, and this pulsing beam and blah blah blah. But anyway, there was no winner's circle for that. So
oh wow,
the first 3 races that I won in my career, I only got to go to one winner's circle, because the first race I won in St. Louis, somebody passed away. So there was an accident and they didn't have a winner's circle. So then we have the Indy, and I won, but I didn't win. And so the 2 of the 3 races, there was no winner's circle for me. But they made it right, and then we got to win Indy again. So it was winning Indy, riding Dave Schultz's bike, doing stuff with NASCAR, Kyle Petty, and I'm really good friends with the Wallaces and Mike Wallace and Kenny Wallace especially. Have a lot of fun with Kenny's laugh and going on trips. Those are the things that were fun in racing for me, as well as afforded me a great lifestyle. And in 21, 22, we could have won the championship in NHRA. I finally got some good coaching with George Bryce and a couple other guys. And I just kind of bumped my head, and I called Wayne Rainey. How about that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wayne Rainey. I called Wayne, and I'm like, I'm in this championship deal, and I'm like making mistakes and blah, blah, blah. And then I talked to him, and he gave me some incredible, cool advice, y'all. And it's like, that's what I say about the mentor. He wasn't my mentor, but he's so special to all of us, I think. And
he's a legend. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to be able to call him and say, "Hey man, I got this going on." And for him to he gave me a scenario that he dealt with. And I was buddies with Kevin Schwantz too, Kevin.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep.
Back in he was a Suzuki guy, obviously, but Wayne spent some time with me, and just a beautiful person, man. So lot afforded. Those are the things that just come into my head right away.
Well, there's no shortage of them, and it sounds like you kind of had as much fun off the track as you did on the track.
Yeah. It was definitely. Well, that was the whole deal, networking and communicating and creating an opportunity for the next deal. And it wasn't always about money. It was about creating. There's no social media, so you were trying to create something in the media.
Make a name for yourself, and
constantly bringing TV to the races or TV to my school programs. I did school programs before the sanction bodies did. Because I thought, it was something that I thought was just so important.
Yeah. I mean, something you're talking about too, is that everybody sees like the final part, like the race actually happening, the results, whether, whatever kind of racing you're in. But I mean, that's kind of the end part of all of like the building and the maintaining and the repairing and the testing of the motorcycles, all the teamwork, travel that goes into it, and all the business part of it. I mean, racing a motorcycle in pro stock motorcycle or anywhere else sounds like it's just as much of a business as anything else.
It absolutely is. That's probably my biggest struggle right now. The facts are, I was more involved in the racing. I loved my dirt bike. I was an okay racer, but I felt like I was doing really good. I had great advice and mentorship from all these fancy people in NHRA. And I was really entrenched in the sponsorship world. And I wouldn't have anything. I have a little 10,000 square foot shop in Birmingham, Alabama. There's gates around it. It's 2 levels. You wouldn't know it's a motorcycle shop, but I'm so proud of it. I was here every day while they built it. I was the biggest pain in the butt, but it's the lifts are in the floor. So you roll a drag bike that's really low, you roll it right in, and you can do a lot of stuff by yourself. Have some machinery here, and but when we were in our heyday with sponsorship, it was a seven employees, a big payroll, and it was wide. We had brand managers for each sponsor, and
wow.
So when we went to when we went to an event, we would stop at schools and we would promote skilled trades, especially in the automotive and motorcycle and diesel industries. And especially back then, it was all about a skilled trade with a tech school. Have a credential. Don't just say you want to do it. Have a credential. So bring in some tools. We were fortunate enough to have Snap-on for a long time, and roll the toolbox in with the credential, and it makes a big step there. It makes a big statement for the barrier to industry, so to speak. That's a term. My buddy George Arentz has helped me with my entire career and with ASE. So that is that's probably the biggest influence of putting everything together and still having time to try to do something to give back and help young people and help the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned it a couple times. You've been giving back and doing school programs and kind of helping the next generation. Sounds like for maybe a couple of generations now, which is awesome. And you've got this Batman Scholarship Program. What does that stand for?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm a philanthropist or anything. I would love to be. I just don't have any money. But it's like I do what I can, and I do it because I want to. I'm not trying to shove people, but it is very, very rewarding when you get into that part of life. I don't have any kids. Emma that I'm with now is she has a 6.5-year-old. It's real special. So I guess I'm getting a little chance. And I have a Larry Dixon, the famous Top Fuel driver. I'm a godfather to his son, but it's all of these things create the emotion that gets you to do things. And I feel so good at going to a school and talking to young people about motorcycles. But then you kind of merge into, okay, I did one with John Andretti once, kindergarten kids. And,
oh, wow.
And they're all like, oh, they're not listening or anything like that. And he says, here, let me show you how to do it. And then he flopped too. So I've learned, I've had lots of experience, but the Batman Scholarship is be a technician. And I'm obviously stealing the Batman thunder a little bit, but I'm not trying to infringe on that in any way. I'm really trying to say, be a technician, and it's for man or woman. It's on our website. It's stevejohnsonracing.com. You go to scholarships. You'll see a little video if you want. Hopefully it talks about the passion that I have for motorcycles, and especially being a technician, a Jaguar and Rolls-Royce technician on my early days. But we want rock stars. We don't want somebody that just wants some free tools. So, but it's only 6 or 7 questions, and some of them are your name and address, or your name and phone number and your instructor and stuff. But that's the infrastructure. It's like, we want to know what makes you special. What makes you engaged in being an automotive technician? And you can't just say, I'm going to show up early and I'm a great worker and stuff like that. So we kick those right out, but we find them, and we've been doing it for a few years now. We give them about $6,000 in tools and toolbox, and, and the people at Peak Antifreeze, Brian Bolander helps us with that, and Snap-on obviously. But it's we have this little card that we do, and we hand this out. But it's
there you go.
It's really Batman themed, and I have a Batman logo somewhere on my shirt right here. But it's
there we go. Yeah,
it's so much fun to go in there, and because everybody's got a name for their scholarship and stuff, and most of the time it's kind of boring. But when you say the Batman Scholarship, they're like, huh, what? The kids are like, what?
Gets their ears piqued
is
up.
Batman here? Or, so it's it's a lot of fun. I do a presentation on marketing your brand after the diploma. So it gives them an idea. When I remember being in school, the scenario is a female walks in, and y'all look, is she on the cheerleader? Is she, all the things,
athlete,
does she have a cool car, or is she play sports, or, whatever. But there's a point is she walks in and there's a brand, right? And all the guys are checking her out and blah, blah, blah. And so the girl's the same thing. Guy walks in. Is he a football player? Is he got a fast car? Is he rich? Will he take me to Taco Bell? Whatever it is, right? So I try to create that understanding that when you walk in for the interview, be there early, show up dressed for success, look them in the eye, hand them a card, bring your driver's license record with you. Your I forgot what they call that. The abstract, I think. Nobody thinks of that stuff. And it's like, as a young person, you can knock it out of the park. And it's like, wow. And then ask a few questions because you've done some research on them. Spend 5 minutes. And then my favorite thing is you just ask yourself questions with your phone and say, my name is Steve Johnson, and I love cars, whatever it is. And then you'll see all the ums and the uhs and the buts and all the dumb things that you say that I've been doing. And you say, man, I got to tune that up. And you watch it. So you can spend 20 minutes and absolutely kill it in the interview. So, and then my presentations, when they roll in there, I let them watch a video of, kind of a hero video, but I ask them what they saw. And when they get the answers right, I'm throwing tennis balls, and because they get a right answer. So when they get a right answer, you get a tennis ball. And at the end of the event, you come up with the tennis ball, and I give you a prize. So,
that's cool.
And I give out $100 bills, at these things.
Yeah.
So it's, I get their attention.
Yeah, that's important. It's really the first step towards marketing anything. So
yeah, and I guess to close, if you don't mind, that when we tell them all about this we tell them all about this industry. We tell them, and you say, hey, our presentation of our scholarship was online. Did you guys see it? Oh, somebody, yeah. Did you fill it out? No. Well, somebody in this class did. And somebody actually won, and they're all like freaking out. And so, and sometimes I'll do it with the whole school, there'll be 400 students there. So and then you announce that they did it, and then you bring the tools in and you give them the tools and the toolbox. And then we give them a check for $1,500 to buy more tools.
Nice.
So it's scholarships are beautiful, and automotivescholarships.com and there's so many of them out there that, but you get them in the mail, or it's, we market it, and we go to the school and we present it.
So where does that passion and that kind of dedication to serving the next generation and helping the next generation along come from?
I need more of these. I gotta get more because you get a couple of dollars when you win these things, But
yeah.
No, I'm fortunate, and there's just so many fun things in life to chase, And I think if you hang out with trash, you're gonna be trash. I hang out with some really cool, fancy people. I've been to Tony Robbins' presentation, and it's like that guy talks about the number one thing to wealth is proximity, And so if I want to win a championship, I need to hang out with faster, quicker, smarter people and stuff. So it's, I think, I don't know, God, probably this is a little bit probably off topic and stuff, but I believe there's lots of angels in heaven, and God's too busy. So the angels work on us that are and they're like, look, I know he likes racing, but he can really communicate with young people. So let's let him have some racing stuff, and he will be able to talk about, being a great person and blah, blah, blah. And so I enjoy that a lot. And so maybe God gave it to me is probably the ultimate answer.
I love it. Well, let's bring it back to racing a little bit. You said at the beginning, over 500 races over, I think 38 years was the math. How much different was your first race compared to like your 500th race? Oh
my gosh. Yeah. My 500th. Well, the first race I had a Z1 bodywork, and it was literally a fiberglass gas tank, little tiny engine, made 200 horsepower. Oh, that's a good stat. First one was a Kawasaki, made 200 horsepower, was a Z1. My 500th race was a Ninja, a carbon fiber, state-of-the-art, $30,000 bodywork, installation, wrap, detail, and test. 30 grand. And the engine made 400 horsepower. So it doubled in horsepower. I've been around so long that the horsepower has doubled from my first engine. So, and the crowds are bigger. There's more television time. There's that our team's much more refined, I guess you could say. And we didn't win that race, but it was just it was very, very special. We did an Airbnb in San Francisco, or in near Sonoma, and we had a big party. Pro Stock car people came, all kinds of people came to it. It was really, and the sanction body. That's why I suck up to him so much. Is the sanction body really gravitated towards the story and promoted it. I have a huge plaque that Emma gave me. It's a big plaque that took everything that was in National Dragster. That's our Bible, and put it all on this laminated piece with the whole article and talked about what we had done and things like that. So it was that was the from the start to the finish, double the horsepower, Z1 to a Hayabusa, and I guess from going 8.10 8.20 maybe to 170 miles an hour to double the horsepower and go 6.7 at 200 miles an hour.
That's no joke. I mean, any of those numbers are pretty impressive. And just going from like 170 to 220 is insane. But what is it like to have that kind of power basically at a twist of the wrist? And when that light turns green and you just send it 100%, what's that like?
Well, we have I always tell everybody it's like hanging onto a bullet after it's being shot out of the gun. It's nothing like the fastest roller coaster ride you've ever been on, because there's a backrest. We don't have that backrest. But I will tell you that when we leave the starting line somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 RPM, we give a wide open throttle. It's on a 2-step rev limiter, so the clutch is in. And when you pop the clutch, it goes off the rev limiter and puts full power to the rear wheel. Now the rear wheel is taking the power through the clutch, and the clutch is designed to slip through whatever kind of clutch you have. So and your ignition timing, you retard the ignition timing to have the right amount of power for the first 1/10 of a second, the first 2/10 of a second, all the way through. And you manipulate all of that. And that's a very, very important part of drag racing, where top fuel cars have one gear and they just slip the clutch all the way down the track until it locks up. And that's how they can put 11,000 horsepower to a vehicle and get to 1,000 feet in 3 seconds at 300 miles an hour. So we have only 400 horsepower, which incidentally, there is a blower dyno. And every blower is different in those fuel cars. And they made a dyno that you put the blower on that will tell you how much air it will push with a certain amount of RPM. So they can regulate that and know exactly what it's doing. Well, guess how much horsepower it takes to run one of those blower dynos?
My guess is 400 horsepower.
Very good. Very good. Give me a tennis ball. I would throw you a tennis ball.
Right?
So that's exactly right. So Austin Coyle tells me a lot about that, and it's really fun to hear stories from him. But that's probably the in a nutshell. That's probably the answer to the difference in the bikes.
Sure. Well, and the other thing is, you're not like strapped in. You don't have a backrest. I mean, you're literally hanging on to this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a, we used to have a tachometer in the old days, and the tachometer, up to 10,000 or 12, whatever probably 12,000 it shifted. Well, what was hilarious with the tachometers is they came off with a speedometer cable, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it came up when you're revving it, and then you pop the clutch, the tachometer is going like that.
Yeah, it's pinging all over the place.
It's so important to shift on time. So we came up with a shift light. So we shift our motorcycle at 14,100 RPM, and do that for 6 speeds, 6-speed transmission. You go about the front wheel's in the air for probably 100 feet. And then you go 0 to 60 in a second. In an eighth of a mile, you're going about 160 miles an hour in 4.3 seconds. and at the finish line, 6.7 seconds at 200 miles an hour. So what I always tell everybody, and what I think is a great answer, maybe you put a pause in your editing or something, but how do you steer a Pro Stock motorcycle when it's going to the left or to the right and the front wheel's in the air?
I mean, you have to use something that's connected. So, I mean, it's probably your feet or you lean or some combination of both.
Y'all, this guy is the only one that's ever answered that question. That is so good for you, man.
Thank you.
Good for you.
I mean, I'm just thinking the wheel's in the air. So you do this, your wheel's just going to be pointing one direction or another. And when it comes back down, you're going to be in trouble.
Okay.
So you've got to do something with the connection that's still to the ground. And that's, okay.
Okay. So completely blow me away. What do you think everybody says?
Hope for the best. Cross your fingers.
No, they always say lean.
Oh, okay, sure.
So if you have a square tire on the ground and it's flat, so if you lean it, now you're pushing on this side, so it's trying to push you back the other way. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's going to right itself.
It's
almost
horrible.
like countersteering.
Not to mention the aerodynamics. So the answer is yes. If you're going to the left, you push really, really hard with your right foot peg.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, if you only have one contact patch, that's your only option, really.
Yeah, is that two tennis balls you get now?
I'll take my $100 in the mail. How about that?
I'll tell you, that $100 shocks the heck out of those kids. It's like, tell me something that because I'm trying to save the world. I'm trying to connect the students back with how important their relationship is with their instructors. The more they want to learn, the more the instructor is going to help. So I say, tell me something that your instructors taught you that you'll remember your entire life, and nobody raises their hand. Yeah. And I'm like, gosh darn it. I'm like, finally, come on, there's got to be. So finally somebody raises their hand, and I said, come up here. They come up here, and I said, what's your name? What school you go to? Because sometimes I do them with multiple schools. And then they tell me a story about, not don't sub-assemble anything. When you're going to tighten something, tighten it all the way, torque it, and be done with it. And so I'm like, because you did that, because you came up here and you had this idea, here's a prize. And he's like, oh my God. And I said, what is it?
That's a prize.
He says, it's $100. And everybody freaks out they don't freak out, but I was like, whoa. And I'm like,
but then how many hands shoot up after that?
Yeah. I'm like, y'all, if I could teach you a few things here, opportunities in most of life are only recognized when they're already gone by you. You have to be, you got to have energy. You got to want to be engaged all the time. And hopefully Mike here winning this $100 is going to let you know. So then all my questions later, hands are going up.
Everybody's hands. Yeah. 2 hands up. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, but I do give some pretty cool prizes.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be walking away smiling with $100 prize. That's sure. So, well, to kind of wrap everything up, if somebody's never been to a Pro Stock motorcycle drag race before, what can they expect? Why should somebody come check it out?
I think the biggest reason that you come to a NHRA drag race, because we're fortunate enough to race with the cars, is we have the ultimate fan access. So when we go out to the racetrack and you're sitting in the grandstands and you watch all this action, funny cars, 300 miles an hour, cars blowing up on fire, all this stuff. Hopefully there's no motorcycle crashes. Pro Stock cars making 1,500 horsepower, normally aspirated, going 220 to 15 miles an hour. And then all the stock cars, all the stuff that goes on the track. Then you leave, you go get your funnel cake or your beer or your whatever it is, hamburger. And then you can go into the pits, and the pits are open. The pits are part of there's no extra cost to the pits. The pits are open. And then you can get right up there. You can see John Forrest. You can see Larry Dixon. You can see, anybody and everybody. There's Skag is a big sponsor now in our sport with these lawnmowers, and zero turn lawnmowers is big all over. Have so many unique sponsors, Arnell Carriers with Josh Hart and things. But I think the fact that you can see somebody tear apart an engine that makes 11,000 horsepower and come to the and then you can go over to the motorcycle pits and you can see V twins, you can see inline fours, the engines come apart, maybe the clutch comes out, the valve cover's coming off, changing valve springs every run, just the team, the atmosphere, and then you go back into the stands, 45 minutes later. So all of that stuff is it's very cool when you're interested in that kind of performance. There's a manufacturer's Midway that's got Suzuki does a good job of showing brand new bikes at the racetrack, and the bathrooms, the manufacturer's Midway, the infrastructure of an NHRA drag race all over the United States is just a clean, professionally run. There's television. So it's lots of social media, lots of people with interviews and golf carts running around with people with mics and stuff. So it's right now there's a big deal that Fox has that IndyCar is the fastest motorsport in the world or in the United States, whatever they were saying. And boy, the Bob Tasca got really wound up. You want to do a search on today's world in racing, do a search for Bob Tasca, because he calls out Fox bad. He says, you guys talk about the fastest thing being an IndyCar, and in a sanctioned motorsport where there's competition, I think drag racing is it. In full out speed, obviously Bonneville goes 400 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour, whatever it goes. Yeah, to say IndyCar, it was a little bit of a rip on our fans and our sport.
Sure. Well, I didn't know that you had such access to be able to kind of see how the magic happens right up there, and that anybody can go do it. That's a super cool, like, accessible thing. I mean, in other racing, classes or bodies or experiences, there's usually kind of that disconnect where you have to have special access to be here, or you have to have pit passes to be here, or you need VIP to be here. It sounds like you can just pretty much see it all for yourself, which is
really
unusual.
Can. You really can. And NASCAR's in a challenging situation right now, just with all the drama that goes on. We saw them at Daytona, and the fans come up and they're getting autographs, and you slide the autograph card underneath the window.
Oh, jeez.
I was dying, man. It's like sometimes you only get to see your superstar through binoculars and stuff. So it's like drag racing is right there. Moto One with Wayne Rainey's organization. That is a beautiful organization with lots of stuff. And I will tell you, the Barber Museum is 10 minutes away from my shop, and Mr. Barber is put together such a beautiful facility. It's so much fun. So I would encourage anybody, if you're not going to go, if you're going to go to the drag races, great, but make sure you come by and see Mr. Barber's museum on your long trip with your motorcycle. But I will let you know that this is what Dale Earnhardt taught me. It's just a die-cast motorcycle, and there's it comes apart. You can hopefully see some of the detail in this thing.
Oh, sure, that's impressive. Yeah,
it's supposed to come apart. It come apart. But anyway, there's a wheelie bar and stuff. But the reason I'm showing you this is to try to give you a little more depth on our sport and where we were. Action and Racing Champions made these motorcycles. Hopefully you can see some of the things that the detail.
Sure.
Buddy of mine, Brian Gettings, made all this stuff. Front end works, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, the business of these things. Dale Earnhardt was the king, and I got to sit with him in autograph sessions, and he told me how to sell these. So while everybody was getting their 5% off of, this is probably an overshare, but while everybody was getting their 5% as a driver for the commission on every motorcycle sold, and the owner would get his 5% of everything sold. And then the sponsor, the sponsor in this case would be Snap-on. So Dale said, if you're the owner and you can talk to the sponsor, get them to give you the rights so you can collect all the money, and then don't sell them through distribution. You do the distribution.
Okay, yeah.
So he taught me some incredible stuff, and insuring contracts. I never heard of that, So if a sponsor doesn't pay, your contract's insured, so you get paid whether so stuff that I've been very, very fortunate to learn from some great people, and that's the stuff I'm grateful for. But I did want to let you see that you can even see the air shifter on this side, hopefully, but it's.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail, and that rear tire is no joke.
Yeah. When the light comes on this is a 1/9 scale. When the light comes on a Pro Stock motorcycle, there's a little button right up on this handlebar right here, and you push this button, and it pneumatically shifts it into the next gear.
Wow.
So and it doesn't kill the engine. So normally, you speed shift or you roll off, or you kill. But this doesn't. We have an overriding transmission, so it's actually in 2 gears at one time. And when the next gear spins faster than the previous gear, it ratchets backwards out and comes out of gear.
And this all happens within hundredths or tenths of a second, man. That's insane.
Imagine when the first guy did that, when everybody's going down the drag strip, and then on our G meter, when you shift with an overriding transmission, the G meter spikes in the gear change. It doesn't it doesn't decelerate. So some really, really cool, innovative things with drag racing. I believe that we kind of came up with the wind tunnel, or with the air box that Ninja did in the early days, when it had that little tiny hole in the front. I think I don't know. I feel like we came up with that. We have a vacuum pump on our motorcycles that evacuates the crankcase with 20 inches of vacuum.
Jeez.
Yeah. So there's some, and we're the only one in all of racing that in NHRA, I think, that still uses electron carburetors, or any carburetors. So we have an MSD ignition. Everybody else has firmware and Motec and all these. We still have carburetors. So not completely by choice, but we're trying to use the resources that we have, and all that fancy stuff that I had. We haven't had a big sponsor in a while, so it's still lots of fun, but we are careful with our resources.
Sure. Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Steve, thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories from going from dirt bikes to street racing to NHRA Pro Stock and winning races and having a hell of a time doing it. I really appreciate the time. So thank you.
You're very welcome. The relationships, Matthew Miles at Cycle World, I've been a dear friend. He's been a road race. He's around going around turn guy, and the whole deal with Nikki, his relationships, I know PJ Harvey, and he's struggling a little bit right now, but if there's anything that I want y'all to remember besides the motorcycle and the scholarship, it's the relationships, man. Cherish your relationships because they will pay off. They will. If you're just greedy and you want money, just work them and you'll get money. I mean, my relationship with Dale Sr. I'd be long gone if I didn't know him, but it's like your relationships are so valuable. And when you have a relationship with a motorcycle and good people, I think you have a fantastic way of living.
Well, that's what makes the motorcycle world as special as it is. So thank you again, Steve. We will talk again.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a great night.